if I could go back in time, I would probably not go back 10 years, but a little more, because we were thinking about transition to democracy as something that the Constitution will solve. So the Constitution was seen as a transitional tool. It wasn't really seen as a tool of everyday, ordinary, normal politics. And in systems where you see the Constitution as a tool of transition in the hands of remote elites, you are really not safe from those elites reviving this transitional language in the name of a better constitution anytime when they see fit. So we were for probably longer than healthy in a paradigm of transitioning into democracy and using the constitution as a vehicle of social and political change, instead of starting to emphasize at one point that the regime transition is now over, and from this moment on, the Constitution works as a framework of ordinary politics and ordinary government as a constraint on political powers, and not as an instrument that fuels constant transition. So it's very telling, I think, that both in Hungary and in Poland and also in Brazil, when the illiberal political actors come into play, they love to speak the language of revolution. Revolution here is used very often in a symbolic sense, but revolution is a reference to a type of overhaul, a type of systemic overhaul where everything is possible again, and you go to the Constitution to make it possible. So this transitional mindset, which was very important in 1988-89, and seeing the Constitution as a tool of regime transition was certainly liberating at the time. I don't think we ever ended up seeing these constitutions as grounding ourselves to the rules of a game. And that's what keeps now biting us in the back, and I don't like seeing that. But I think that reclaiming the language of the Constitution that is a set of rules that puts limits to political action, as opposed to opens up possibilities of reinventing the nation for the 100th time, is really crucial. And opposition parties and civil society and academia have a great role in calling out the misuse of law and the misuse of constitutional language for the purposes of political self-perpetuation. These regimes, for the time being, rely on being regularly re-elected. They seem to hang on to a democratic veneer which gives them greater legitimacy on the international and regional level than we can possibly imagine. It's extremely difficult for foreign leaders to challenge the policy choices of their peers who were re-elected with significant democratic margins. Now, so long as they run in elections, they will need people they run against. I think we should be much more sensible and sensitive about electoral engineering and much more strategic than we are used to being, because elections are won as a result of careful political planning and strategy. The US is a good example of that. Brazil in particular has to be very careful to make sure that election rules are not engineered in order to favor the incumbent. It's very clear that Prime Minister Orbán in Hungary receives major support from the current electoral system, and it's also very clear that the more advantage an electoral system gives the incumbent, the more difficult it is to overturn the tide through peaceful means of ordinary. politics.